My name is Jennifer Bourgeot, and this is the United States Weekly Water Cooler, where we all gather around our water cooler and we chat about informal topics, hoping to come up with something collaborative, or we learn something in the end. And we can guarantee, at least we know when Dave and Mike are on the line, we know what day we're celebrating. So today we have Jodi Haney and two of her colleagues presenting to us. I'm going to turn it over. Hopefully they'll give us the weather update in Ohio, so they can share that with us as part of their intro. And we are recording our meeting, so I will turn it over to them. I'm super excited. If you saw my water cooler announcement today, I said that Jodi is voted by me, but I'm sure you'll agree, as most energetic and positive partners in the GLOBE community. So we're going to today. So I'll turn it over to her.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's on behalf of this award, I'd like to thank you, Jennifer, for your vote of one. Ohio today is a beautiful day. It's in the 80s, and I think, Damascus, Maryland looks like it's a beautiful day. It's 80 degrees and it's 39% humidity, and it's just partly cloudy with some cumulus clouds out and some, I don't know, I see cirrus clouds too. So it's a beautiful day here in Ohio, at least Northwest Ohio. And it is my pleasure to present Project Prairie Pandemic with my two colleagues, Amy and Christy. We're all going to take part in the presentation, so I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more as we get started here. This project is also involving the Toledo Zoo, and Mitch Magditch from the Toledo Zoo is the education curator there, and he is on vacation today. So Christy has been, both Christy and Amy work with Mitch quite a bit, and so Christy is going to present the zoo piece of this, but I just want to make sure you know this is a collaborative between two school districts, Whole Prairie Intermediate in Perrysburg, Ohio, a suburban region, a school. Christy DeSale from Dorr Elementary School, which really is considered a central city school. Mitch Magditch from the Toledo Zoo and Aquarium, and me, Jodi Haney, Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and Excite Learning. So this is called Project Prairie Pandemic. And Project Prairie is a program that's been going on for a little while. Christy will be telling you about that. We've been working with area schools, and all of a sudden the pandemic hits. And so we're like, okay, now what? How do we get kids learning by doing during the pandemic when they're away from their school prairies? Okay, so that was our dilemma. Jennifer, in one of her correspondences, sent out a reminder that National Geographic had some emergency funding for education. So we applied for that emergency funding, and we were awarded a small grant from National Geographic, and Y-Laces in Dixon, our very own Dixon Butler, also gave us some money, awarded us some money for some of the backyard and school science equipment. So those two partners really made this pandemic piece of Project Prairie a possibility for us. So we want to thank them. I'm going to let Christy take it away at this point and tell you a little bit about the background of Project Prairie, and then we'll tell you what we did during the pandemic. So Christy?
Okay, well, thank you, Jodi. And then since you're sharing, if you could just advance the slides for me, that'd be awesome. Thank you. So, well, there's Mitch and I at the Toledo Zoo. He was teaching me how to rear and tag monarch butterflies. But Project Prairie is actually kind of an acronym, not really because it's the first letter of the word, but it's Prairies That Invigorate Inquiry Learning. And it's a Wild Toledo Prairie initiative in collaboration with the Toledo Zoo. So just to describe a little bit about what Project Prairie is, it extends the Wild Toledo Prairie Initiative into local classrooms and utilizing the native prairie installations as living labs. So now they're not just prairies, they're they're improving outdoor classrooms. And it's an inquiry-based education program that trains students and their teachers to use the native prairie habitats for citizen science projects that contribute to a larger body of global research to make a difference in the natural world. So that's already in place with citizen science, but through the GLOBE observation, we'll be improving that even more. And then the Toledo Zoo conservation staff, They do the installs of the native prairies on the properties and that are involved with the schools. And then they also train the staff and teachers and students as well for citizen science, inquiry learning projects, and follows up with related classroom programming in the schools. So that's the most important part, is the connected education piece. So they're utilized with the intent of inquiry learning outside. And so first of all, we talk about the why Project Prairie and the need for native prairies. Well, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana have lost more than 99% of their native prairies over the last 150 years. And that's astounding. So through the Project Prairie, we're gradually in Northwest Ohio installing native prairies. Okay, and then so another reason is that native plants are important for attracting native pollinators. So these European foreign landscapes, while beautiful, they will not attract our native pollinators. So books that I've bought both of these books. There's Bringing Nature Home, and then the other one is Attracting Native Pollinators. And they're really good at explaining the need and the research behind why it's so important to improve your native pollinators and your native plants to attract them, because they will not pollinate with foreign plants. There was an example in one of the books about how in a region in China with pesticides, they killed off all of their bee population for pollination. And so they have farmers that are going up on ladders on the hillside in this region to self-pollinate these plants. So it's so important that we don't get to that point. Okay, now benefits. The environmental benefits of native prairies increases our pollinator population. It is a resting spot for migratory birds. It decreases carbon dioxide, and reduces upkeep, reduces runoff, and it's a food source for many animals. And it's, I think they're beautiful. It's a natural beauty, not like the manicured European lawns that most people are used to. And it's a habitat for so many species of animals and insects and migratory birds and everything. So how does this all begin with Project Prairie? It starts with students actually spreading the gallons of native seeds to germinate their own prairie. They were so proud and took ownership of their prairie outdoor classroom. And it's really cool to see the grade levels go up, because they have like such pride in it, because they planted those seeds and they've watched it grow throughout the years. So after it's planted, then we start the professional development piece with the teachers receiving professional development at the Toledo Zoo to learn not only about the prairies, but also ways of teaching and learning in an outdoor classroom. Sorry, my dogs are making noises in the background. The Toledo Zoo educators also come into the classrooms and teach based lessons about prairie species that they're gonna learn about. They become ecologists, discovering and learning about native organisms they may find in their own prairie. So building background knowledge of what they're going to find. And then, so then they also not only do lessons in the classroom, but the zoo educators will come out and they also provide inquiry lessons in the prairie. So here there's pictures of students, they're making observations using the transect line survey method. They also were collecting valuable information through student citizen scientists as diversity and abundance, and then they can compare valuable information between the various schools. And now with our P3, Project Prairie Pandemic, they will be doing globe observations. And Project Prairie is literally growing. 2 years ago, there's only 3 prairies, with schools with native prairies. Now there are 18 schools and 6 school districts involved with Project Prairie. And new for 2021, we have now completed, in collaboration with teachers and Toledo Zoo educators, a school, like a Project Prairie pre-K through 8 curriculum. All schools involved with Project Prairie now have inquiry-based life science lessons that are aligned to their grade level standards to facilitate in their outdoor prairie classrooms. And now with P3, it'll extend them even more with research. with GLOBE observations and different things. So Jodi, you want to talk more about like the Project Prairie Pandemic?
All right, thanks, Christy. I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to hear from Mitch. He's really a wonderful resource and human being, but Christy did a great job talking about that piece. So thanks, Christy. So yeah, Project Prairie, I was asked to be on the advisory board, and I've been working with Mitch for years and years. And I kept thinking, this is an awesome project. We need to infuse GLOBE. And that was in the back of my mind for a number of years. And so when Jennifer reminded me about this National Geographic money, I thought, okay, this is a way to really make sure we can partner GLOBE with Project Prairie and keep these kids doing science, learning by doing over the pandemic. So the goal number one was really just to keep these kids learning in a hands-on fashion. And goal two, in the back of my mind, was that, the value added was to make sure students, while they were doing these other citizen science programs with Project Prairie, that GLOBE would be a piece of it. And so we set out to study how do backyard environments compare to school prairies, with a kind of a subtopic, how can we make our backyards more like school prairies because of all the benefits that prairies provide. So our methods for this project is that we have 10 co-taught lessons by 2 or more of our 4-member team. And 3 of the lessons will be on prairie basics using the curriculum that you heard Christy talk about. 2 of the lessons are going to be on this iNaturalist citizen science tool and data collection process that has been taking place over the past few years. 2 lessons will be on GLOBE data collection. Mostly we're doing atmospheric data, precipitation, temperature, clouds, surface temperature, and then we're also doing soil temperature and soil moisture. And so 2 lessons are to teach the students about that. And then we'll have 2 lessons on GLOBE student research. This will take place over the course of the whole year. And the timing wasn't ideal. We got the grant late, so we didn't start. We started meeting in March, ordered the materials, and kids started data collection at the school prairie in their backyards in April. So yeah. And then our big goal is by next year, when we meet again in the fall, we'll do some more work with the students. We'll do some more data collection, both at home and in their school prairies. We'll teach them how to write a good research question, comparison question. We'll work with them through these a research project, a collaborative research project, and they will submit to the GLOBE IVSS, which is the International Virtual Science Symposium. So that's what we're setting out to do. What we've done so far is that this Rethink really meant that we had to get kids ready to do science at home. And so we had to think about the instructions that were needed in order for them to do that. So you see a QR code here. I don't think we have time to show the video, but we created a video. Can you see that video on the screen? I'll just show you just a second of it. I'm not sure you're going to hear the video, actually. Do you hear this? Do you hear the video? No. Okay. So basically, we had a little tutorial with the teachers showing the students how to collect the data step by step. So there's Christy and Amy over at my house right after we had our fence put in. So it was looking a little shabby there. And there's the dog who made the video. So that we did a step-by-step 9-minute video. So we thought that would be something that when we sent instructions home to students, the students could watch the video. They could also play the video with their parents or guardians so that they would have enough information on how to actually do what we were asking them to do. So that video we thought was really important, and it worked out, I think, fairly well. The teachers can tell you more about it. And then we had a backyard data collection instruction sheet. And it is busy. I mean, we had to give them instructions to collect enough data for the protocols that I told you about. So you can see this is a 2-sided sheet. We tried to give them some visuals about which tools to use and highlight some things and use some color. And then Amy told me, oh, colorblind students really they don't see that red. So that was a little problematic. We haven't fixed that yet. We will. And and then we had a data sheet that they recorded on. We didn't want to use the GLOBE data sheet because, again, they were doing this at home. We needed something that kind of corresponded step by step with the directions we were giving them. But these all do follow the GLOBE protocols. So that was what we sent home with them. And then Amy also came up with a parent letter And I think she shared that with Christy. Christy may have modified it and used it. Yep, I think they both signed off on that so that the parents knew what was going on at home. And then the students, we collected data at school for one day, and we had a Google form where they uploaded their data to that Google form, which then turned into a Google sheet. And they also submitted their backyard data using this Google sheet. And then I went through and I just put in green what I would consider to be pretty good data. I don't know if it's perfect yet, but it was within the realm. And then you can see that there's some not, some blue or some other colors where just the numbers aren't working out real well. So we have some work to do, we know, on soil moisture, but it was my way of just doing a quick check on how the data collection was going at home. Okay, back to Christy. She's going to tell you how this all went in 4th grade at Dorr Elementary, and then Amy will tell you about 5th grade in Perrysburg.
Okay, so that data is impressive. I'm glad you're doing that end, Jodi. I'll do the teacher end, right? Okay, so if you want to advance the slide, I'll go ahead and show how we started introducing Project Prairie Pandemic at Dorr. So at first, before Jodi came out to talk to my classroom, I just kind of started with some GLOBE protocols. That I had the students out because Jodi gave us some cloud identification charts, and they just started using the GLOBE cloud charts to identify some clouds. And then on the next slide, then while we were out there, I talked to them about how I would like, they were citizen scientists. They helped me record the cloud data on my GLOBE Observer app. And I encouraged them to have their families download the app when recording their cloud data at home. So they were so it gave them 2 options because we want to have like equity in our classrooms at home, right, in our backyards. So, but they were excited about, oh yeah, I'll have my mom download that on her phone, and it's very easy. And I show them under the document camera how to do the app. So they were excited to do that. And then our GLOBE program master trainer, Jodi Haney, came out, and they were so excited for her visit because, first of all, to have another human being in our building that we allowed an outdoor lesson. They were so excited. We haven't had visitors all year, but her energy was so amazing, and they were excited to learn how to collect and report scientific data using GLOBE protocols. And we have some, like, some they sit down for their outside class. And here they were so amazed that there was so much to learn about soil. She taught them how to measure surface temperature, soil moisture, and they were really funny because they were like, I'll no longer think of soil as just dirt. Now they can think about it in so many other ways and how to observe soil. So something very simple like that, but very like eye-opening for them. So the students also began their field-based inquiry in GLOBE research in the prairie. So she modeled everything, all the GLOBE protocols, and then they set out with their partners in small teams to do their observations. And there was another group that when they were recording air temperature, that they actually had the idea where Jodi and I, we were standing there together, all of us, can't remember who came up with it first, but like, they had the idea to hold a thermometer under their clipboards to prevent the sun from affecting an accurate temperature reading. So there they are holding it under their clipboard. So they were already thinking like scientists when they were out there, and they just have so many great ideas. And then Dr. Haney facilitated discussions about the inquiry process and the prairie data. So the prairie is actually behind Jodi there. But she clarified any questions to make sure that they would be successful in doing these same investigations in their backyards. So they're prepared to begin their own backyard investigations after she modeled, and then they did in their small groups all of the investigations they were expected to do at home. Plus they could refer to the video and everything. So then after that lesson, they were ready to go home and do their own backyard investigations. And they were very excited, and they felt like young scientists as they just took home their authentic science tools and conducted their own backyard investigations. They said, are we really allowed to take these home? I'm like, yes, because they're like, they have science tools in their bag to take home, and they felt very, very excited about that. They thought they were really cool. So
Thank you, Christy. And Amy, before you go, I want to say two things. This sign right here, it's because I didn't like the way my belly looked in that picture, so I put
Oh, God.
Prairie. And then
I thought it was because our prairie doesn't look
story.
very
That's
good.
a very true story. It showed up this morning. I'm like, oh, I got to do something about that. I had pandemic hair and pandemic belly, apparently. Okay, so this picture, I know some of the teachers are wondering, some of the Globe, some of our Globe team, they're wondering, what the heck is this thermometer, right? Because that's not a Globe thermometer. Well, Dixon and I were talking about the equipment to use, and I know that students have a hard time reading the analog soil thermometers. My college students sometimes have a hard time reading them. So I thought, we're sending these home with fourth graders. How likely is it that they're going to be able to read that thermometer accurately? So we found this digital meat thermometer. We bought one. I tested it at home against my soil thermometer and calibrated it with my Globe calibration thermometer that I have at home. And it worked out really well. So we said we were going to test this as just like a device that we felt might be suitable for Globe. Okay. So, and I know this is a might be, we're not saying it is. And the teachers, maybe Amy, you can talk about, we had one broken thermometer on day one. We got a little worried about it, but Amy can tell you how that all worked out. But the students were super pumped to think that they were testing a piece of equipment that nobody else had been using. And it was great equipment because we could use it for air, we could use it for soil. And the probe is exactly 10 centimeters. And the soil can is 5 centimeters. So to do the 10 centimeter measurement, we stuck the whole probe down inside there, and then for the 5 centimeter measurement, we just stuck the probe on top of the soil can, so to speak, so that only 5 centimeters of that probe would go down into the soil. So it was, I thought, worked beautifully. And I told them to block the probe from the sun so that the probe wouldn't have direct sunlight on it. And the students said, well, and I said to use your body, and the students said, well, why not use the clipboard? So Christy was right. They were really thinking out there and trying to be very careful in their measurements. It was certainly a great thing, a great day with them. All right, Amy, you're up.
Hi, I'm Amy. So with those soil thermometers, so I say the one that broke was a happy accident because the kids could actually see that there were wires inside there, and then they could figure out how these things were working rather than just this mysterious tool that you stick it in the ground and it gives you some number. So it was a little happy accident. I have over 100 students that took these home, and I can say that only one broke, and it was the same one that broke out in the field. So, because I sent it home duct taped, but that was the same one that broke, and it was just fine. So I think, having gone through quite a few kids, they did just fine. They were easy to calibrate too. I wish I put that picture in. So I teach 5th and 6th grade science at Hall Prairie Intermediate School in Perrysburg. That's our school in the background there. It's a brand new school, and it's on old farmland. So, and it is in the Maumee River watershed, and the Maumee River drains into Lake Erie and causing some algae problems in Lake Erie, in the western basin of Lake Erie. So one solution to that is to plant these native prairies near the farmland and near the rivers. And we sit on a federally protected ditch that also drains to the river. So our native prairie is catching old fertilizer runoff from this farm and current fertilizer runoff before it gets to the ditch and then ultimately to the river. So at my school, our prairie is nearly 2 acres, and it is in its 4th year of growth. So just like Christy's students planted the seeds, we had a part in planting a little, I call it a pocket prairie, up near the school. But the rest of our prairie was seeded using machinery because it was just too big. But here's Jodi out there at our school as well. And our bat house that has no bats. It was made by an Eagle Scout, and I really wish he would have asked where to put it because that would not have been it. But it's been used by our resident owl who leaves us nice owl pellets daily. So it's fantastic. One thing, go ahead, Jodi. This edition of Globe and I've been Globe trained, but it's really difficult to use Globe with hundreds of kids in a day. This protocol that Jodi came up with made it more accessible for me as a teacher and for my students. And I like that it has added a non-biological factor to what we're looking at in our prairie, because so often we were just focused on the plants and the animals. And so I like that we've added the GLOBE protocols in to get some more data out there. So here's two girls learning to do the soil, collect soil. They have their clipboards out there. They practiced all of them, which was fantastic. And of course, no time in the prairie goes, unused. Everybody finds something out there quite interesting. But the kids really enjoyed learning how to use these. And again, like Christy said, they felt like true scientists and they were doing real things. And Jodi really made them feel like they were doing real science, because they are. So here you can see, this was in early spring, so our prairie doesn't look like much in the early spring, but there's our cluster of kids all around, all buddied up, doing their GLOBE collection protocols. They had the directions right in front of them. We got very few questions on how to do it because the directions were nice and clear, and we modeled, and so it went really well. Then I had the students, all of my students have Chromebooks, so they're one-to-one, they get to take them home. So I had the students upload their photos of themselves and their backyards to a Google slide presentation. That way, when we look at data, we can see what their yard looks like. Do they have trees? Is it a brand new yard? Is it an established yard? So they had to upload pictures of themselves doing that data collection in their backyard. So they did a really nice job, and I got a lot of complimentary emails from parents about how much they enjoyed it. I live and work in the same community where I teach, and so parents would catch me at the grocery store and catch me at basketball games and just say how really cool this was that we entrusted the kids to bring this home and to do this at home. I had a little bit of a management issue with all of my kids, so if you can advance there, Jodi. So I had 20 backpacks that needed to go home. And like I said, over the course of the day, I have 120 kids. So I had to partial these out, and the kids got to take them home for 1 week. And so I made labels for the backpacks and things to put in that, here's your little quick, short, what to do with your backpack. And then the kids would forget to bring it back. Well, there's somebody else waiting for it. So I made little reminders. Those bring the bag back were on fluorescent tags. I just kind of calmly handed them to them. Some things we ran into: split families. Well, I left the backpack at my dad's and now I'm at my mom's. Living in apartments, which I just said, just sneak someplace, to take some. But there were some little snafus of these going home. My dad won't let me dig in the backyard. But overall, I'd say the majority of the kids did the protocols, did them correctly, uploaded photos of themselves, uploaded the data to our Google Forms, and truly had a good time being citizen scientists in their backyard. I am fortunate enough to loop with my students, so I will have the same students again next year. So they'll be ready to go in the fall, and I plan to let them take the backpacks home several times during the year to see how the temperature of the soil changes. The other thing we were watching was the temperature of the soil to see when the cicadas would emerge, because we had read that those 17-year cicadas were waiting for a certain soil temperature before they would come on out. So we don't have them here in Northwest Ohio, but we were waiting to see if that temperature coincided with the emergence of the cicadas, and it did. These are what the backpacks looked like and all the goodies that were inside. And for the most part, they came back with everything. This program worked out great. Those string backpacks that Jodi found were terrific because kids could just sling them on their shoulders, take them on the bus. The tag does say to return to Hall Prairie School if found on a bus or if found somewhere else, but I have a whole slew ready to go for next year.
Okay, that's me again. I'm going to go back to this one picture. See that garden trowel? That was Dixon picked that. And I'm like, Dixon, you're sending home a very sharp instrument with 4th and 5th graders. But as it turned out, they were really good because to get through, prairie grass is the roots are really strong. And so we really needed something to be able to get through that first layer. And so we just told the students, if we didn't think you could handle this, we wouldn't give you this tool. It's not a toy. It's a piece of scientific equipment, and you need to handle it with respect. And they did. So I was a little worried about that, but it worked out really well. Okay, so for our next steps, fall of 2021, what we have planned is another school prairie day where we'll go out to the prairies again together and remind them. Amy's students loop 5th to 6th grade, so we'll have the same students. With Christy, she's going to just, because she's that awesome, she's going to go and work with the 5th grade teachers and those same students again. So we will still have the same students, but she will just, work with, she'll have to bring in some more teachers on that. So we'll have a school prairie day where we measure what's going on in the prairies, and then we're going to do a iNaturalist bio blitz to see if we can identify all kinds of living things that are in the prairies. We only got really one of our lessons done because I said this was kind of ill-timed. By the time we got the grant, we were really almost done with the school year. So we have some more co-teaching of those, prairie basic lessons and iNaturalist lessons and so forth. Those will all be via Zoom and video recorded, so that other schools in the Project Prairie program, that's hard to say, will be able to utilize the videos in other schools elsewhere. So we will have a set of materials that we can disseminate. So we're going to design some research projects comparing data from schoolyards and backyards, knowing that with timing is going to be essential. So if we have a school prairie day, so those backpacks are going to have to go home very quickly thereafter to be able to compare the data, or the teachers will send the students out to collect data in the school prairies and their backyards on the same days. So we're going to have to figure that piece out.
Jodi, there's a question about the soil moisture protocol, since the kids don't have drying ovens at home.
Oh yeah, so I worked with Lynn and Dixon. We talked about just doing the air drying method. So what the students did is they took the first mass the day that they collected the soil from the ground, and they just put it in their home in a safe location and just let it air dry, and measured it every day until the weight didn't change. And I think it took, and that's one of the things we're going to have to figure out, did we get to the last weight? When I did it at my house, it took 4 days. It looked like some of the students were getting that because I was doing it at the same time that they were, to see if their final percentages were about what mine was. And but I think that some of us did not get to a final dry weight. So we're going to have to work on that a little bit. But we did not use an oven. I was going to use the oven at a very low temp, and Lynn told me don't do that. So we just decided to do air drying. Thank you, Amy, for chiming in. So yeah, so then our big, I think we told you we're going to submit to the International Virtual Science Symposium when those applications come out. And the goal moving forward is to sustain GLOBE in these 2 schools and to grow the program, Project Prairie, with GLOBE infused to other schools. And ultimately to start doing Project Prairie workshops with GLOBE workshops side by side, to do those together, so that teachers have GLOBE data collection and resources available to them as well. That's it. So now we have time for questions.
All right. Are there any questions? I'm sure there are. I'm sure people have questions. And thank you for bringing this to our attention, because I hate to say it, but I did not know about prairies in Ohio. I knew about prairies in Iowa, but never they're not, they're right there. I should have assumed. But there's so few prairies around now, right? So anyway, just my observation.
That's right.
Any questions so that I can stop sounding like I don't know anything?
Well, when we got the initial grant for these school prairies, it was an EPA grant, again, tied to the algae in Lake Erie. So talking about how these native prairies, prairie plants, their roots are 5 times as long as the plant, and they're a carbon sequester, and they really truly do filter out those. But we had to explain to the grantors, they kept calling me, well, how is this different than a school garden? How is this, how is this just not a school garden? And so I said, vegetable gardens fail in Ohio because kids aren't in school in the summer. There's nobody there to take care of it. Flower gardens fail in Ohio for the same reason. So, you can get sunflowers to grow, but other things that really need cared for. But when we said these are no maintenance to low maintenance, and they that the grantor was sold. We were building a new school when we put it in, and my maintenance guy was like, I don't have to mow those 2 acres. And he was thrilled. So there was a huge difference. And we call them pocket prairies, school prairies, native prairies. Some of them are as small as 200 square feet. Mine is on the larger size with 2 acres. So some are just really pocket prairies, just to get the kids to look at diversity.
And my school prairie is a 1/4 acre, but it's still large enough for investigating and to get established. And once you're at year 3 and the roots are established, and it really is low maintenance because there's really no room for invasive species because it just develops. Now, in most of our pictures, they're in the fall, so they're not all in bloom like they will be like the summer, but a lot of it too is teaching them, and also the parents and families and community, like about natural beauty, because it really, like some of the pictures that, when Jodi was out in our prairie, it just looks like dead, but it's really not. And there's a lot of life there if you look closely. And I know I had my students write Toledo City Council. They have a prairie strip across from the Toledo Zoo, and they were talking about how that prairie strip looked unkept and unsightly. And my kids were really upset about that. And I know so is Mitch and Amy's students. So they wrote persuasive letters telling about the benefits of prairies and teaching that it's their responsibility to teach the public about natural beauty and the benefits of a prairie. So it just really kind of gets them involved in the community as well and becoming advocates for that.
Somebody asked about the equipment. I'm going to put the meat thermometer on the chat right here. So I'm working on that right now.
And someone also asked the curriculum connection to content areas. I know the prairie curriculum that Amy and I helped write, we did we're a team of teachers writing these inquiry-based lessons for the prairie. They were strictly aligned to the life science standards. So for example, 4th grade is fossils tell us about species of long ago and today, and we compare the trilobite to a roly-poly bug or a pill bug. So, and we look about how's fossil traces. Well, then we go out and we find, animal tracks and things like that. So there's different ways that we connect our prairie to our standards through the life science standards.
So Svetlana asked about which EPA grants. I'm not sure which EPA grant. The Toledo Zoo was the initiator on that grant, so I'm not sure which one it was.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't think it was BWET. BWET's a really big one, Amy,
Right.
Or a bigger one. So I don't think it was a BWET. It might have been the Ohio Environmental Education Fund, OEF. I'm not positive, but I think
it was definitely an EPA grant. The initial one was definitely an EPA, but it was Wild Toledo and the Toledo Zoo wrote it, and then put my prairie and Mike's prairie in with that.
Great. Yeah, the Ohio one I was talking about is EPA, Ohio EPA.
Thank you. Anne asked if you analyzed data from previous years. Oh,
not yet, because this is the first year we've been collecting GLOBE data out there, but we will now that we have. I mean, we haven't even put this up to the GLOBE website yet, I hate to say, because it was happening fast. It was happening in April and May, and I was then in Florida. So I wanted to just see how it went and then just look at the data and make sure that we have what we have. And then we talked to Amy and Christy about the fact that what I can do then is we're going to come back together this summer, is that I can say, let's use, I can really look for the data that I think is data worthy of uploading. The school data for sure we can get up there, and then maybe some of the backyard data. This is the question that, Mike, we've been talking about the fact that these kids can't enter their data themselves because it's in their backyard. So it's that's going to be a little bit tricky. Is it within the study site and so forth? So, but at least we can get the school data up there and maybe handfuls of some of the other data.
And our kids are young. Our kids are young. They're 10 years old. And so some have parent support, some don't. So, that's definitely a goal for us to get them to do it themselves. But like Jodi said, some of those data points were really, really off. And then then it'll skew the GLOBE data.
Yeah, the soil temperatures looked great. I didn't run any statistics on them yet, but I can, because I kind of want to look at variability, because they're all in the same city. So they're gonna be close to each other. There's gonna be some natural variability, but that looked great. Air temperature looked great. Surface temperature numbers looked really good. It came all down to soil moisture, and I believe it was the dry weight. Did we get to the end point? And then the math, we allowed the computer to do the math, but did we get a final dry weight? I think that's where our problem came in. So it might be that, I don't know what happens there, but it might be that we have to do some more of that just at the school for soil moisture. But I would sure like for them to be able to do soil moisture at home. We just have to problem solve that one. Maybe the group has some suggestions for us.
There was a question about protocols with 100 kids. That has always been my hesitation with GLOBE. It's just 100, a nice little neat group of 25 is fantastic, but 100 kids is hard. And it's me. It's me saying it's hard. But with this and these backpacks, the tools were accessible and easy. And we had enough for kids to work in pairs when they were out there. And the way Jodi structured their recording sheet was student friendly for their age, followed with the protocols, because we were having them do so many different protocols. It just, I don't know, this time it worked. I've been GLOBE trained probably for 15 years. And this is the first time that I honestly, and I'll be the first to admit that I honestly felt like I'm doing it right.
And Amy, I'm glad you said that. And I got to say, this is important for us to hear you say that, because if Amy's not, if Amy's not putting GLOBE data up there, there's a reason, because Amy does everything. And you know that just from listening to her in this few minutes. Same thing with Christy. These are phenomenal teachers. And one of the things that we've been talking about in the GLOBE community, Amy and Christy, is how to make it this more accessible in a citizen science format, so that teachers don't have to upload the data. 100 students, how do you figure out what to upload? So if it was app based and quicker to upload, then you're more apt to be
really think, yeah, so, like the Cloud app has made it very easy. I think, I don't want to say idiot proof, but easy enough for kids to step by step figure out how to do that. One showing, and they know how to use that app. We can load those onto iPads. Sometimes as we get further away from the school, they lose Wi-Fi connection. So that is something that happens when you have a group of kids. And with our age level of kids, they do not have their own cell phones. Hallelujah. So that has been a pandemic change that I have loved, that my fifth graders do not have phones. So they're not, I can't say grab your phone and let's go outside. So, but that at the Cloud app works really well. So like John is saying with high school kids, yes, absolutely. But it was user friendly with fifth graders as well, just showing them one time.
And two things, I know, one, when I was out on my students don't have phones either. I had my phone out there and they had their charts. And then I would go through the tutorial questions, and I would ask them, are the clouds low? Or are they poofy? So I would ask them the questions that the GLOBE app was asking, and then they would answer it for me and I would enter it. So they were still involved in doing that, even though I was the only one entering it.
Yeah, it's still just one set of data going up for a class of 24 kids.
Right. And Jodi also created a very user-friendly Google form for them to put in their own data. So when they came back with their backpacks, some of them already filled out the Google form at home, and some of them did it right when they came back. Oh, I forgot. And they sat down at their desk right away and just completed the Google form with their information. And I collected their data sheets. But that was very easy for them to enter as well.
I'm putting the instruction sheet in the chat and the Google form in the chat so that you can see what those look like. The instruction sheet, I think, was really important for us, and we spent some time on it. I created the first one, but then Amy and Christy really helped by saying they don't understand this word, and they just edited. They didn't tell me what to do. They just changed some things to make it better. So that was a team effort.
Adding the pictures of the tools is really helpful, so they know which tool they're using, because we can say use the soil thermometer well, is that the blue thing or the red thing, or, you know, what is that? So until they are more familiar with the tools, it was very helpful.
I'm going to say that the atmosphere protocols will be available in the Globe Observer app very soon. So the rest of, not soil temperature, but surface temperature, air temperature, precipitation, and it doesn't walk you through them quite the same way as the clouds tool does, but it's, I think, still a little bit of an easier data entry than like the Globe data entry app. So that is coming very soon.
Thanks, Kristen. That's great to know. I know that Jen has to leave, so she asked me if I'd end the meeting when we're done here, but I did share this instruction sheet that they were talking about. So this QR code takes the students and the parents to the video tutorial, so they could watch the video. I don't know how many of them did, but I think some of the teachers, Christy, I think you and your teaching colleague and Amy showed it before the students went outside maybe. So I think that was helpful. And then just putting these little pictures there. I know they're small, but students have good eyes. So just knowing what tool to grab when, I think helped. And I was a little worried it would be too much text on a page, but they seemed to be able to do it. And when we modeled it, we did a little bit at a time. We did, okay, let's do these 3 things, go out to the prairie, go. Then I called them back, say, okay, let's do 3 more things. And then they went out there and they did it. So that way they could not have to remember quite so much all at once, but they did a really good job. When the day we were out there, I was really impressed with if they didn't know it, they read the directions and then they finally asked us, which is what you'd hope for. And these, like I said, these are GLOBE protocols. I was really careful and I sent this to Dixon before we launched it. And I was really careful to line things up so that we weren't breaking protocol, other than the fact that we knew that we had some different equipment, but we were willing to do that just because, I mean, even if we couldn't get it to the GLOBE website, just because we had to get good data. We had to have something that was actually the students could use. So that's where we made that decision. This is the data sheet. So this corresponded, with each thing that they were doing there. They just, as soon as they did it, they could go to their data sheet and record it.
Jodi,
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing that. Maybe I need to unplug I am not hearing anything.
I think it was Christy and she froze.
Okay.
back in for the other students. The only thing is they could just weigh it at school. We could just buy more containers, canisters. That's a good idea.
That's what Jennifer said, is if they took them back to school, to put the lids on the soil cans is fine. They can get the lids on. To get them off, it's really hard. But the
Off
teachers
is a
can maybe
challenge.
help with that.
I know.
So you know what we've been using is that cling wrap. We've been using cling wrap, but I don't know that would handle the transport from school to home, the cling wrap. I'm not positive on that one.
It'll be in the bottom of the backpack, because some of them came back with soil in them in the bottom of the backpack.
Backpack, right. So, but I do like that idea, finish weighing them at school. That would really be a good idea. So maybe we're just gonna have to struggle with that soil can lid issue and come up with a good way to get it off.
Jodi, can you?
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. This is Svetlana. Do you mind sharing the parent letter as well?
Okay. Amy, is that okay if I share it?
Is that okay?
All right.
And did you have any concerns from parents or?
No, just a couple, you can't dig in my backyard.
Okay.
And the other thing we had was the split families, split homes.
Okay, yeah, I heard that.
I'm not at my dad's house all week. So how can I, do soil temperature all week? And well, take it with you. I didn't know what to say. And some got left at my mom's house, and I'm at my dad's house. So that was a little thing to try and figure out. It would have been nice. I maybe add another couple extra backpacks so that somebody's not waiting, because then the kids would get mad at each other. It's my turn for backpack 12 and you still have it. So I made it very visible so they knew when their week was, when they were getting it, so they could have that conversation. It was up on the wall for them when they got it, what number they were getting, and how long they had it for.
Right. Thanks.
My feedback was positive from parents and the students. I was so impressed with some of the students that it was an area that they were very successful in, that they may struggle at in other areas in like school, that, you know, in the classroom. And I think, you know, even just looking at my Remind app, which is my communication app with families, like 92% of the parents were viewing all of the pictures I was posting of students doing Project Prairie Pandemic and what they were doing at home, and it was positive. They were all like smiley faces and liking all of the we were doing. So I would say 96%. So only 3 parents didn't even view it, and everyone that did view it liked it. So pretty good feedback.
That's great to hear. I didn't even know that, Christy. So thanks for sharing. Someone asked about if the science working group.
Take a screenshot of it and put it on my slide. I'm like, oh, we're fine.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Somebody asked, is the science working group considering modifying the soil moisture protocol? And for Amy and Christy, the science working group are kind of like the people looking at the science, the scientists, and looking at the science behind GLOBE. So everything that gets modified has to go through that committee to make sure that it's, you know, good science. So what Dixon told me is that there is something that they're looking at. Instead of using the soil can, there's like a brass ring of some sort. And in fact, he bought me some, he thought, and then they were the wrong things. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to have to use the soil cans. I'm like, that's fine. So, and he says they're, I think, exactly 10 centimeters, and you kind of pound them into the ground and they don't bend. And he thought it was a better way, but I haven't heard if that's, I don't know if the science working group is actually looking at that or if that is just something he knew about. I mean, I know he's working with GLOBE somehow on this brass ring option, but I don't know how far it is in the discussion, to be honest, if it's just a new idea or if they're really trying to make it part of the protocol.
Well, I'm thinking with the drying, the drying oven is a barrier to the soil moisture protocol at all levels. I mean, including high school, because they're expensive, and unless you have like a really robust ag program or something, you're not going to spend, most teachers aren't going to spend, what are they now, like $600 for an oven that will basically use one protocol. So I was going to say, yeah. I just really like the idea of the air drying. I think that's, and when we think internationally, you know, that's really, it's very equitable and inclusive.
Yes, and one of my college students, we did soil moisture for a number of years, and one of the things we looked at is building we took a black 5-gallon bucket and put holes in the top and put the soil cans in there and just made solar ovens and just put the soil cans open in the, you know, after we weighed them, put them in the black bucket, put the lid on the top so the water could evaporate, and they worked great. That is a great tool, and I never did anything with it. I just was curious. I was just playing around with an idea. Because again, for inclusiveness, that's something pretty much everybody could do, is get a, you know, black bucket or container, let the sun hit it and evaporate that water out of there. And now I don't know, because my soil friends tell me if the soil gets too hot, that's not good. So maybe we burnt the soil somehow. I don't know, but it worked. It dried out really quickly.
Moisture protocol right now, and it doesn't account for doing like heat lamps rather than having an oven. So I guess I don't know. It seems to me that however you dry it, if it's, you know, may take longer if you use a different method than a soil drying oven, but however you dry it, if it's dry before you weigh it the second time, I don't know why it matters besides speed in terms of the method that you dry it. Doesn't seem like to me.
It doesn't
matter.
I think they said it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think theoretically somehow if you cook it too fast, you could like damage the structure of the particles. And so then if you're doing other stuff with the soil, but if you're only doing soil moisture, I don't know why that would matter, right? And that's what we're doing. We're just trying to see, you know, just trying to figure out how much water was in that soil.
And if you, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to wait longer if you're air drying or using a heat lamp or something, but that may not be as much of an issue. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of good, I thought, because Amy and Christy, you can tell me, but I like the fact that the kids had to repeat a process, that they had to do it again and again. And remember that they turned it on first, waited for it to be zeroed, learned how to zero it, then put the can on. You know, so there was something to that repetition, I think, that really means that they're going to feel more comfortable about doing that again, you know, in the future. I had my daughter do a practice test on one, and she's not a science kid. I hate to say that language because I tried all my life, right? But she's an art kid. And so she goes, what, do I have to do that science thing? I go, yep, the whole week I'm gone on vacation, you got to put it on there and weigh it and record it. And so anyway, I had her doing it too. Alternative motives. Any other questions? Well, I thank everybody for your attendance and participating and your great questions. I really want to thank Christy and Amy, and we're going to be presenting this at the annual meeting as well. So thank you, everyone, and let's keep doing GLOBE.